Long-haul truckers. What's the creepiest, most paranormal thing you've seen on the road at night? Story 1. Maybe a bit off the mark, but it still scared the crap out of me. I was headed west on I-76 here in Denver, just cruising along at about 70 mph. Out of nowhere, I saw a massive, almost solid cloud of what looked to be dirt coming at me. I'd say it was at least 20 feet wide and 10 feet tall. I scanned ahead of me but couldn't see any vehicle it could have came from. With nowhere to go, I slowed down and took the hit, hoping there wasn't anything big enough in there to come through the windshield or jack up my truck. Owner-operator. It was pretty loud as I smashed through it the instant it hit. Knew it wasn't dirt, though. I immediately hit the washers because I couldn't see a darn thing through all of the carnage. My windshield was painted with guts. Turns out it was bees. Freaking huge bees that sounded like rocks when they hit. I can't even imagine seeing that swarm if I was walking. They would eliminate the crap out of anything in their path. Answer: semi-related. I bought a new car several months ago and had to drive the 395 from Reno to Vegas to get it. Darn lack of deals in Nevada. Trip down was fine, but headed back north. It was later in the day when we left, and it was dark by the time we got to Walker Lake Reservation. Late summer, pitch black at about 10 p.m., and little do I know that lake is known for midge swarms. I thought it started sprinkling rain as we rounded the bend, but soon started pumping my windshield wash as fast as I could, as my windshield was plastered with thousands of midges in a gigantic swarm over the road. I slowed from 40 mph to 20 as visibility was poor at best for a good 2-mile stretch of seemingly endless bugpocalypse. I ran out of windshield wiper fluid near the end of it and had to drive 15 miles to the next town, barely able to see. Had my sister-in-law with me, and I'm fairly certain it was the scariest moment of both of our lives to date. Don't go to Walker Lake in summer after dark, yo. Place apparently gets spiders so bad in the summer bushes, look like wads of webbing. Also, so much for my new car being detailed. I'm fairly certain the garage still stinks of bug guts after that power washing, and there's still guts hidden in crevices on that car. Had a picture, but not on this phone, LOL. Story 2. I was driving near Las Vegas at around 3 a.m. I had been following a few black SUVs along the highway for a good hour or so. They had Nevada plates that were single-digit numbers in order, 1, 2, 3. Suddenly, they all pulled off the highway down a dirt path. There was no mile marker or cactus that would indicate a path there. It was just dirt. After pulling off the road, they all turned their lights off. I didn't stick around. It was creepy. Story 3. Well, I'm not a trucker, but a motorcyclist, which kinda makes it even more spooky. Drove home from my GFS house, just a 20-minute ride, but it was 3 a.m., and the road goes through a forest without any street lights. So I ride through the forest, already giving everything my little 50cc dirt bike had in it back then, and suddenly on the side of the road, a fudge-naked mannequin is standing. I saw it appear in my headlights, and drove by it only doing like 60 km/h. It was scary as hell. A fucking mannequin standing there naked on the side of a dark road in a forest at 3 a.m. in the morning. Darn. I still get the shivers. Story 4. I picked up a hitchhiker in my small Nissan Versa sedan, and we were driving down the freeway. There was a big vehicle in front of me, so I couldn't see what was in front of that, when all of a sudden the other guys start yelling, "Tire, tire," and pointing ahead of us. I slammed on my brakes just in time to see the SUV in front of us swerve too late as the car in front of it swerved as this massive tire that was rolling down the freeway demolished the front end of the vehicle in front of me and bounded high into the air, coming down in front of my car where the steel band broke, and it stopped rolling. If I hadn't slammed on the brakes, it probably would have come down on top of me. He got out at the next gas station. I don't remember his name, but I think he saved my life that day. Story 5. A good friend of mine told me this story years ago. He is the stereotypical old big bad trucker. I've seen some weird stuff with him while driving in South Texas along the border. He never batted an eye, but while telling me this story, he had goosebumps and a concerned expression, which from this guy is about the equivalent of a trembling lip and chute-stained pants. I'll tell this story in the first person as he told it to me. Years ago, in the late 90s, I was on my way from the house, Central Texas, heading to Laredo to pick up a load. It was early morning, around 4 or 5. I had just come off a string of days at home, so I know I wasn't tired. I am on one of those 2-lane winding roads in the absolute middle of bumfudge nowhere when I see something on the side of the road at the edge of my high beams. At first, I just thought it was roadkill, as is usually the case. As I get closer, I see that it is roadkill, and there's someone crouching over the deer carcass. I remember thinking either this guy's taking the antlers as a trophy, or he's fudge sick. As I got closer still, I can now see that's this guy's eating the fudge deer. He's pulling chunks of meat from the stomach and bringing them up to his face. At this point, he stops mid-motion and looks up at me. Not at my truck, but at me. He stands up, and that's when I see that it's fudge, huge, brown, and covered in hair. I remember thinking at this point, oh fudge. This thing is standing on the tiny shoulder looking at me. By this point, maybe 3 seconds have passed, and I'm about to the point in the road he's standing at. I didn't even think of stopping. In fact, I'm starting to lay on it and get the hell out of there. As I'm passing it, it's looking at me. Again, not at the truck. It's looking through the driver's side. Windshield at me. He obviously has the intelligence to know that there's a driver in here and knows where I'm sitting. As I start to pass him, I can still see its head above the hood of an old needle-nose Pete. Old truck design where the hood goes straight out from the windshield, known for being tall and difficult to see around. This thing is fudge giant. I remember seeing what looked like human intelligence in its eyes. It scares the shoot out of me. Sorry for the wall of text. It's a story worth sharing, though. TLDR Bigfoot? Eating a deer on the side of road. Answer. All right. My mom and stepdad have a Bigfoot story. We live in Illinois. The IM Canal has a towpath that runs for many miles across several towns. They were heading home at around 2 a.m. in the middle of the woods, on the towpath on a snowmobile. They saw something walk up from the canal and start to chase them. It started to catch up, and my mom says the most memorable thing was the smell. She says it smelled like passing. It apparently chased them for quite a while and almost caught up before slowing down and them pulling away. Neither of them has gone out there at night since, and that was 20 years ago. A few months later, they were at a local bar and some lady was talking about being an author and working on a piece about Bigfoot. Apparently, there's been a lot of people who claim to have seen it in the area but don't want to sound crazy, so they don't talk about it. Story 6. My dad is a truck driver, and about 15 years ago, while resting at the side of the road, he woke up in the morning seeing that his entire trailer was robbed empty. My dad's a heavy sleeper, but his cargo could not have been stolen without at least a forklift, and everyone would have woken up by a forklift unloading a trailer. My dad suspects the robbers used a pump to get some kind of chloroform into his cabin to make sure he couldn't wake up. Story 7. My great-uncle was a long-haul trucker, and he swears that one time he was driving down the road to see 2 guys pull a rolled-up carpet out of the trunk of their car and throw it in the river. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it's still creepy nonetheless. Answer. It was probably true. My friend, his wife, and several neighbors last year saw a large car drive to the river at the end of their street in Indianapolis, and dump a girl's body, all in broad daylight at like 2 p.m. Of course, the car sped away. My friend and another neighbor run up to the side of the river, and it's definitely a woman's body. Said he wanted to throw up, and did later on. This woman had obviously been taken down. They got the license plate, but do not know if the people were ever caught. Edited my grammar to make things better. Edit 2. Some people have stated on here, this is not true. I did a web search on nothing, blah, blah, blah. First off, the news does not show up at every crime scene where a body is dumped. Whether you believe me or not, my friend who told me this is not the kind of person to lie, and neither is his wife, is one of the more outstanding people I know and gives a shoot ton of his time to volunteering and helping the public in Indianapolis. I am not going to ask him about something that was really traumatic just to prove a point on Reddit. So, believe me if you will or not. It's up to you. But do not call it untrue just because. You cannot find it in a darn web search. Story 8. Okay, so here is a spook for you, and to this day I still have no idea WTF. So I was in the VMD area and had a lot of work-related sites ranging from downtown Baltimore to Virginia Beach and all around. Friday wrapped up and I hit the road to some social arrangements I had made for the weekend. Spent the weekend with friends out in various parts of VA, got dragged off to other places even further out. The usual weekend fun times. It's late Sunday night when I have to leave, or I'm not going to be able to get home in time to start my, thankfully, late afternoon Monday. I'm fully rested. I didn't do any drinking. I'm not into substances. On the highway at about 3 a.m. in the middle of bumfuck nowhere between Roanoke and D.C., absolutely nobody around. I'm cruising along in the left lane simply because nobody else is around. No headlights for the past hour, no tail lights either, no road lamps either. It's dark, it's mildly damp, it's foggy. I have the music up, I'm feeling good, all is fine. And then I just happen to look to the left, and there is a fudge dog barking at me. A German shepherd in a car passenger seat, somewhat blue glow from the instruments inside the car, and it's got its face to its window and it's barking its head off at me. I get a good hard look at it too, because at first my brain is not registering cop car dummy. I'm doing 90 and a 75. I promptly have the oh shoot moment when the dog, the instruments, the white crown Vic light bar all click in my brain after a second hard look. I put my foot on the brakes and start slowing down hard but safe to pull over. I even put my blinker on to start shifting lanes over to the right to pull over because, wait, there is no shoulder on the left side of this road. I look back to my left, where there is still no shoulder room for another car, and it's just gone. No trace. I slammed my brakes and stopped in the middle of the fudge highway, flipped on all my light bars, and even looked around with my handheld spot. There was nothing. No tail lights, no headlights, no engine sounds, nothing. There are no other tire marks in the damp but mine, and I can see for a nice long distance both ways too. Nothing. My vehicle had great visibility and a lot of extra lighting. Off-road SUV with the trimmings. There is no possible way somebody pulled a sneaky, let alone drove that fast on wet sloped grass and rocks. On my left side, so, yep, there you have it. Ghost cop and his dog didn't like me speeding, apparently. P. Story 9. My dad has several stories from hauling logs in Idaho and driving trucks through Utah and Nevada. My favorite is from actually just in his pickup going through Utah. He said there was a light keeping pace with him out in the desert on a moonless night. It kept pace for a minute before it disappeared and his truck turned off. He stopped and turned it on and pulled off at the next diner. The folks in the diner called it a common occurrence. The creepiest is when he was hauling logs in Idaho and was coming down from near Coeur d'Alene area during a snowy winter night. He was putting on chains. Before heading down steep grade and said, all of the hair stood up on his body. It felt like there was something watching him. Halfway down the switchbacks, he saw a large figure standing on a 20-foot tall embankment. As he got closer, it jumped down, and the shoulders were as tall as the cab. In a single bound, it leapt down and then leapt over to the other side of the embankment. At the time, he thought it was a Sasquatch. Now he says it was probably a demon trying to make him crash. He didn't stop to remove the chains until he was well away from the mountain. Answer: whoa, that actually reminds me of a story. I live in Spokane, which is about 45 minutes away from Coeur d'Alene. I was driving back from my aunt's in the dark one night and just hit a massive wall of fog. I turned the corner and a whole herd of deer come running down the road toward me. I slow down a lot so I don't hit them. Then after another few seconds, I see a woman standing in the street, facing away from me with dirty clothes. The area I was in is known to have meth heads and heroin addicts, so I cracked the window and called out to her and asked if she needed me to call anyone. As soon as I spoke, her head whipped around and it looked like she was a burn victim. Huge lidless eyes, no eyebrows, Voldemort nose, and a mouth that looked like it was melted or sewn up or something. Then she ran off into the woods and I drove a lot faster than I should have home. Story 10. I'm a stand-up comic. I often refer to my profession as being a trucker with jokes. Near the north end of mainland Michigan, I saw a car stopped on the side of the highway. We hadn't seen a car for a while. It was 2 a.m. I commented to my buddy, "Poor bastard." But as we passed the car, the lights came on and it got back on the road. Odd timing. And then it was gaining on us. I told my friend to speed. He did. He sped more and the car kept closing in. We were doing 120 and this guy was catching up to us. We saw an exit with a hotel, so we took it and drove right in front of the building where it was well lit and we could see the front desk clerk. The car got off that exit too. It drove into the hotel parking lot, then turned around and got back on the highway. You'll never know what that guy wanted from us. I'm fine with that remaining a mystery. Story 11. Creepiest driving, I-40. I-30. Through Texas and Arkansas, I would see what looked like animals' faces popping out of the bushes, but longer than a glance proved nothing there. They had just paved the highway and there was hardly any traffic. I was dead tired. It was super dark. Highway hypnosis, I suppose. Paranormal. When I went to local driving, my route ran near an air reserve base in Indiana, so you'd see planes and helicopters pretty often. One night, about 2 a.m., I was headed to pick up another load when I saw a bright green light in the corner of my windshield. It was too low to be an aircraft. It moved pretty slowly, then darted, and I lost sight of it behind some trees I drove by. Typical. I saw a UFO shoot, but I still think it was just a helicopter or a jet that I saw at the prefect angle that turned after a takeoff. The jet pilots have broken the sound barrier over town a couple times in the past, sonic boom, so a jet flying abnormally isn't necessarily out of the realm of possibility. Just batshit crazy driving south on I-75 in the winter in Ohio, I witnessed a compact car like a Cobalt or similar get on the on-ramp to merge into I-75 north and lost control. They went sideways, fell at least 6 feet off the ramp, and onto the shoulder of the interstate landing on all 4 wheels, spun 360 degrees, and then proceeded to merge into traffic like it was fudge nothing. Blew my fudge mind. The CB radio was going fudge nuts for about 5 minutes. Holy shoot, who else just fudge saw that? Etc. Story 12. My dad told me and my brothers this story when we were growing up, and it's always stuck with me, particularly on long drives when I'm feeling a bit sleepy. The first time I remember hearing it was after I asked him if angels were real. I was probably 7 or 8, yo. He drove trucks decades ago, before I was born, and before labor laws around limits and brakes were more standard. Assuming it's different now. He'd fairly regularly accept calls that would extend his shift to where he was driving 24, 36 hours or more, without a break longer than a quick bathroom or fast food stop. My dad has a pretty mathematical brain. He's the type to make up logic puzzles out of something totally mundane just for fun. Whenever we were driving around town, he'd regularly ask me things like, how long would it take us to get from home to the store if we were going 37 kilometers but had to stop for 5 minutes in the middle because a family of kittens were crossing the road, etc. He had come up with similar equations for himself while he was driving solo that involved things he was seeing like the odometer, mileage markers, the time, and then he could test his speed based on the equation, etc. One night, after having already driven a particularly long day, he noticed his eyes getting droopier and the whole roll down the window and blast the music. Up thing didn't seem to be helping much. It was a rainy night on a pretty windy mountain road without a shoulder to pull over safely, so he started doing those logic games out loud to keep alert and awake. He was saying something to the effect of, I just passed mile marker 146, so what time will it be when I reach 200 if I'm going 55 miles? Then he closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and felt his head do the nod-jerk thing, which woke him up with a gasp. He opened his eyes to see he was driving straight towards mile marker 158, which would have sent his whole truck tumbling down a random jerk mountain ravine. He was able to correct the course safely back, but it was a matter of seconds between that reality and certain passing. He insists to this day that he slept through 12 miles of windy mountain road going 60 km/h, only to wake up right at the last moment between life and passing. The story usually ends with him tearing up, saying, I don't know if there's angels, but I know there's something bigger going on in this universe than our human brains have been able to understand yet. If I wouldn't have woken up right when I did, you kids wouldn't be here today, and that's something that feels pretty close to spiritual. Edit. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger. Now, to finally figure out what this gold thing is all about. Answer. Not a trucker, but have been up and down the East Coast a lot over the years. I'm also one of those types that pushes through the 24-hour driving mark. I've had times when I've zoned out for almost whole states, usually around SC and GA. Not asleep, just not really thinking either, just completely on automatic. It seems to be a common occurrence for experienced distance drivers. It sounds like your dad was in auto mode and went further and fell asleep at the wheel and luckily woke up in time to save his life. Story 13. My grandfather was in the Air Force, and one night he was driving, back to his base maybe, I can't quite remember, and he saw a woman standing on the side of the road in a long white dress at about 2 a.m. He circled back to ask if she needed help, and she was nowhere to be seen. He searched for her for about an before giving up and deciding to leave it alone. When he decided to go on his way, he had a strong feeling that he needed to switch lanes. He was on the road alone in the middle of the night, so he had no idea why. And just ahead on the road there was a broken-down truck with no hazards. On that he would have hit and probably been eliminated by, if he stayed in the lane he had been in. To this day, he's convinced the woman was trying to warn him, like an omen or something. Story 14. I was 23, my newly married husband and I decided driving team would be a fun adventure after college, rather than jumping into the 9-to-5. I was down in Arizona on a long stretch of nothing about 4 a.m. when a guy pulled up next to me waving his CB. I never left mine on. Listening to those guys' BS was irritating. I turned on my CB and he told me I had a blown tire. I thanked him, figuring I would stop at the next truck stop. He kept harassing me to pull over and check my tire for a good 40 miles. I finally got to a next town and pilot truck stop, got out and checked my truck. No blown tires. Anywhere. No clue what that guy would have done to me, but so glad I trusted my gut and didn't stop. Not paranormal, but I have plenty of stories as a young woman on the road. Story 15. Not exactly at a road, but in the sky. I'm a pilot and usually fly around Florida. This specific night I was out at around 11:30 p.m. with a friend flying down the eastern shoreline, when I suddenly see a medium-sized white light slowly start coming towards us, stop, and then go vertically into the ocean and disappear. Both my friend and I saw it, and we were completely speechless. Asked the air traffic control if there were any kind of aircraft around us, and he told us we were the only aircraft in a 40-mile radius.